time we'd both go to a Toastmasters meeting in our respective cities and come back and go, ooh, I won a ribbon for table topics, which is a spontaneous public speaking game, practice, whatever. I use it in my course as well. So we would talk about, I won this, and I won a ribbon for speaking at this. And then after a while, my life took a different turn. Like, I just started doing other things. I kind of forgot about Toastmasters after 07. 07 was my last meeting. And then 7 years later, I returned to Toastmasters. And so this time it stuck. This time I went through the whole program. I went all the way from the beginning to the end. I became a DTM. And to become a distinguished Toastmaster, which is what DTM is, you have to do a lot of different things. You have to literally almost run parts of Toastmasters in order to get through the program. Mm-hmm. You have to give speeches. You have to do workshops. You have to hold Toastmaster offices because they're a nonprofit organization. So you're not getting paid for this. As far as when you become an administrator for Toastmasters, you're not getting paid for it. It's part of your growth. Because it's basically Toastmasters speaking and leadership. It's not just speaking. So they also train you to be a leader, to put you in a position where you have responsibility for the actual part of the organization to get your game up. So it's an excellent program, and all you have to do is go to Toastmasters.org, and there's Toastmasters all over the world. So even if you're not in New York, if you're not in the United States, if you're not in North America, it doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm. It does sound amazing, too. We can talk about some of the offshoots about that and some of your program as well, too. You're listening to The Mike Wagner Show at themikewagnershow.com, powered by Sonic Web Studios. Visit online at sonicwebstudios.com for all your needs. Looking at a professional website without breaking a budget? Sonic Web Studios is the answer. Sonic Web Studios offers fast, affordable, custom web designs that blow the competition away. Call today at 1-800-303-3960. That's 1-800-303-3960 or email to support@sonicwebstudios.com. Mention the Mike Wagner Show, get 10% off your first order. Sonic Web Studios, take your image to the next level. Also, the Mike Wagner Show is brought to you by Evan Fine of the Senior Reserve Group. When you start thinking about retirement, who are you going to call about Medicare? Why call the best? Evan Fine of Senior Reserve Group, specializing in Medicare, health, and long-term care insurance. Evan can be reached at 1-800-650-9357. That's 1-800-650-9357. Or email to evanfine@seniorreservegroup.com. Evan is licensed in New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Connecticut, Delaware, South Carolina, and Florida. Also, The Mike Wagner Show can be heard on themikewagnershow.com. Also, check out Facebook at facebook.com/The Mike Wagner Show. You can also download and listen on SoundCloud, Spreaker, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. Also, watch the interview on YouTube as well. We're here with motivational speaker, podcaster, men's confidence coach, and Toastmaster, and many other projects for many years. He's out of New York City, and he also has a website called CoreConfidenceLife.com. We're here with Dennis Sumlin. And Dennis, you talked about a number of things like with your podcast, your ventures, and Toastmasters. And this also applied to your other ventures that led you up to this. I mean, you've been a host and producer of the Pop Top Music Program and former president at Performing Arts Division of the National Federation of the Blind and talent recruiter and advisor at Visionary Media. You can tell us some about your past work before leading up to what you're doing.
Well, yeah, all of those things are, pretty much where I came from. The Pop Top Music Program, since we were just we did talk about podcasting recently. So the Pop Top Music Program is a program I've had forever. I've had it probably, at the time of this show, it's been around for maybe 15, 16 years.
Wow.
And it's a pop music program. It's based on the pop Billboard charts. We play songs from 1890 to the present, as long as they went top 10 on the mainstream chart at the time, because obviously Billboard doesn't go back to 1890. So whatever the standard chart tabulation system at the time was, that's what we go by. Most of it's Billboard, but obviously before 1958 or something, it's something different. 1955 actually. But so the show is based on themes, and we play top 10 songs each program that comply with that theme. So for example, one show we can do songs with names in them. It's actually called Name Game is the name of that particular series of episodes. And so we look at top 10 hits from any time, from 1892, whenever I'm recording it, that have names in the title, like Mandy. You have a song called Mandy. There's a song called Diana. There's a song called Dirty Diana. So we just go down the line and do that with every theme you can think of. We got colors. We got people. We got people that went to number one, left, and returned again. We got people who, it's all different kinds of combinations of people who've done things on the pop charts. And so the Pop Top Music program can be heard on Internet Radio, 195 The Globe, and you can find out more information, of course, at Core Confidence Live. All right, so the other stuff you mentioned.
It sounds like you're a very, very, very busy guy, and I was going to ask you, how do you manage to do it? But first, let's finish up what you were going to talk about as well, too, since, of course, we have a lot of time for you. So
we'll be here all night long.
It's perfectly okay. Don't worry about it.
Well, I don't have a time constraint per se, but yeah, at some point I have to eat. Which one should I take first? The Visionary Media Company and the Performing Arts Division of the National Federation of the Blind. I'll take the blind one first, since they both are kind of intertwined.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is the first time this is coming up, I guess, that I'm blind. That to me is totally blind. I can't see crap. So if you would have hold your hand in front of my face, I wouldn't tell you how many fingers you have up. So that's it. I've been blind since I've been 11 years old. So that's just the way it's been. So the National Federation of the Blind is a advocacy organization that sticks up for the rights of blind people and accessibility issues. Mostly it's political. They talk to the lawmakers, local, state, and national lawmakers here in the U.S., and blah, blah, blah. That's what they do. They're an advocacy organization. And so I was with them for a while, and they have several different divisions for different interest groups in the world. One of them, of course, is performing arts. And here I am. I ran their performing arts division for several years, and we did many projects. We put out a few benefit albums. We got a couple of proclamations from state governors. We gave away scholarships and so forth. It is an elected position, so I served a few terms, and I decided to leave. Also, the Visionary Media Company is a company that recruits blind and visually impaired people for music and production talent. That company is no longer in existence. I think the guy sold the company. But when I was there when they were first building it, and I was their talent recruiter, and I loved that job. So I got to go to a lot of places, meet a lot of different people, deal with a lot of different artists and producers, and be able to hook people up to their dreams. I love being a conduit to connect people with where they want to go. So that was one of my favorite jobs in my life. And there you go.
It sounds amazing too. What were some of the famous projects that you were involved in? Like, what was the most distinct that's out there right now when you're involved with what you're doing, Visionary Media, and also National Federation of the Blind?
Well, the stuff I did with them was all pretty much last decade. You can still get the albums, though. You can still get the Performing Arts Division Sound and Sight Volumes 1 and 2. They came out many years ago, but you can still find them online. So a lot of the work I'm talking about now, of course, is way in the past. Visionary Media Company was mostly dealing with blind and visually impaired artists, so nobody really mainstream, mostly indie, independent artists. So there's that. The work is still available. The artists are still out there. But, again, these are indie artists, not someone you'd hear on a radio after Britney Spears. Mm-hmm. So, like I said, you can still get those Sound and Sight albums from the Performing Arts Division. As far as anything I've done related to that's current, I've been in commercials having nothing to do with the things we just spoke about, but the most recent commercial I had running on the air was in 2017, and so that ran all year across the country. It was a radio ad about this condition called Non-24. But other than that, the stuff that's current is all my podcast and my coaching and speaking.
That is amazing, too. And, of course, being involved in the TV, radio, and media industry, who do you consider your favorite personalities and the most influential when it comes to TV, radio, or media?
Radio broadcasting has kind of been the thing I've been gravitating towards more so than television broadcasting. So in my first podcast was a politically oriented show. I'm very politically aware. Used to be very politically involved. I ran a few campaigns, and even one of my clients ran for mayor, and I coached his campaign. So I have some political experience. And so all of my early influences in the broadcasting industry were all radio political figures from both sides, because, of course, I have a political opinion, a political persuasion, but I listen currently, and have since I've been 11 years old, to people from all sides of this political spectrum. So you would even hear me. One of my favorite political hosts is actually a host I don't agree with politically, but his talent is so big and so good, regardless on what I don't agree with about his views, that I couldn't help but to be influenced. So some of the people who I've liked from both sides of the aisle, some people may throw up, maybe both sides of your listeners may throw up, depending on the names I mention. So if I mentioned Rush Limbaugh, maybe some people just lost their lunch. Or if I mentioned Mark Levin, who may be a little bit less known, that may make people toss their lunch. But I have other sides. If I told you that I watch sometimes Rachel Maddow, that may make conservatives throw up.
Mm-hmm.
Anderson Cooper, things like that. So I listen to things from all sides, because I'm listening to the talent. I'm listening to the way they do their craft. I'm listening to them, not necessarily their views.
And what style do you think you took up after you had mentioned like Anderson Cooper, Rush Limbaugh, and Rachel Maddow? What personality or personalities you think have shaped you into the person you become as a podcaster?
Rush Limbaugh. And, that this sounds like, because again, I'm not a ultra conservative, but if you want to talk about, if I'm going to be honest about who shaped not my desire to broadcast, but who shaped me as a mentor in the broadcasting field, and if I'm being honest, I would have to say Rush Limbaugh.
Mm-hmm. That is amazing, too. And, of course, especially with Rush Limbaugh having a recent hearing problem as well, too. So, he's been in the business for a long time, and, you guys are great inspirations and everything else. And, of course, just a couple more things here. And, about your...
In fact, I'll throw this in there. If you were to hear my earlier shows, which they're not available now, but I'm saying if you would hear my earlier shows, my very first podcast, which is going back 15 years or so, if you're familiar with Rush Limbaugh, you'd be able to tell the influence in my earlier shows, because that was my first show, my first podcast. So I was just shaping myself. So I did a lot of Rush Limbaugh-ish things, not viewpoint-wise, but the way he ran his show at the time. And, of course, I developed my own style since then. But, again, what shaped me in the early years, that.
Mm-hmm. That sounds amazing, too. And, of course, you've been involved in these projects and everything else, especially with your core confidence and many other ventures as well, too, Toastmasters and motivational speaker. What do you consider your most favorite projects and the most challenging in your profession?
Right now, my favorite project and the most challenging one.
It can be like, one or ones, not necessarily just one. It can be like maybe a couple or a few.
You know what it is? Well, first of all, I love teaching.
Mm-hmm.
So one of my favorite things to do is to be a teacher. I love teaching public speaking. I taught public speaking in many different places, and I just enjoy teaching. I've always enjoyed teaching as a kid. I taught classes when I was a kid. I actually convinced my 8th grade math teacher to allow me to cut my other class and go to her class and teach her other class. And I was in junior high, and I talked her into letting me do that. And she knew I was cutting my science class to teach her other class. I'm just obsessed with this stuff. And so I enjoy doing that. I also enjoy podcasting because that's the time I get to talk about philosophy and the holistic spirituality and, healthy masculinity and, healthy sexuality and be a little bit of a comedian. And so I love podcasting because I get to be a philosopher and I get to be creative, like with the Pop Top Music program and my adult cartoon, my adult audio cartoon. So I love all that. So those would be my favorite things, podcasting and teaching. as far as challenging, I don't find the products themselves to be challenging. I find